Hello, my Built 5000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hmm. Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another That chapter. This one is titled Cop Doesn't Realize His Horrifying Acts Were Caught on Camera. Alright. I'm excited to get into today's video. Hopefully, you guys are excited as I am. If you are, please go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cup with something special. Let's get traumatized. It's always more traumatizing when it's like, you expect shitty people to be caught on camera doing shitty things. You don't expect, like, oh, we're going to catch the police doing shitty things, the people who are supposed to be protecting us and all that good shit. It's a lot more concerning. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. I don't know what the fuck, how I do.
Hey you,
words.
and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this little video, we are once again heading to the Boston area. You know, we got the big dogs, like you got Florida, you got Texas, but all big mass, they're really up there giving it the old college try, with cases like Anna Walsh, Karen Reed, and today's story, Sandra Birchmore. A story of monsters hiding in plain sight, monsters of the very worst kind. But before we get into it, please subscribe to see new videos every single week. Now,
Do it, people. Show them some love.
Let's give it a give.
Mike does amazing work. He really does. Love his stories, love his videos. Go show the man some love.
This whole story takes us to Canton, Massachusetts. Yeah, folks, yeah. Literally the exact same place as Karen Reed. Yeah, and this story, it also, if you can believe it, involves the police. Hot diggity, what's in the donuts? On February 1st, 2021, 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore was seen for the very last time entering her Canton apartment.
Oh.
She was quite distraught at the time, and almost 4 hours later, a man who
she
was
don't
making sure
match.
he could not be identified walked in after her.
Her shirt
Almost
didn't match
30
her
minutes
britches.
later, he
Her
leaves.
britches didn't match her socks and shoes.
And over the following months and years, the entire
I
disturbing
hardly
and
ever
creepy
match, but I'm
history and the
colorblind, so.
tragic life of Sandra Birchmore, it would just come spilling out. The case of Sandra Birchmore, it really begins, folks, to get back to the beginning. It begins with Boston PD's Young Explorers Club. Young Explorers is kind of like a cross between Army Cadets and like Boy Scouts. It's designed to establish trust between young people and the police department, with active and retired members of the force acting as sort of mentors to youth in the community. Obviously, as you can imagine, the more vulnerable somebody is to falling into a life of crime, the more important it is to establish from like a very young age a positive relationship with the police force. The big issue, though, of course, is that it also has a habit
police are shady?
of putting people who are young people, who are very vulnerable, in close contact with some very powerful people. And as we know, power, it only does good things to people. People only become better when they become more powerful, if you ask me. That's all I've ever seen. In March 2010, 12-year-old Sandra Birchmore, she was very desperate for some meaning in her very young...
It's true. Power, money really brings out the best in people. We see it all the time. Let's look at, anyone who's came into power and used their power wisely and didn't fuck over everyone coming and going. It's nothing but good stuff. Nothing but
life. Sandra hadn't had the easiest start. She was raised by her mom and grandmom, but would pass away when she was a teen, and things at home were pretty rough, and she was known to act out in school. She'd also been known to tell lies a lot. Just everything about Sandra's behavior sort of screamed for attention, which is common with people, young people especially, who just need somebody to care for them.
Give them a little bit of attention.
Sandra herself.
And that's horrible. And a lot of people don't understand that whenever kids start acting out really, really bad like that. When it gets to the point to where you've had absolutely no attention whatsoever. Any attention is good attention, even if it's bad. And it's a lot easier to get screamed at for doing something bad than to be praised for doing something good. People take for granted the good things that people do on a daily basis. Sometimes people need to be like, hey man, you're doing a good job. It just makes people feel better. But a lot of times it's just kind of looked over. until you do something wrong, and then you have full attention. Bad attention's better than no attention. It's just like they say for like famous people. Any publicity's good publicity as long as you're getting your name out there and shit. Kind of same thing with kids, man.
She was really lacking that. You know, she had these people who were looking out for her, but it wasn't enough for her. Like, one of the teachers at Sandra's school would describe her as being, quote, socially dysfunctional. Put that on my tombstone, please. She had a hard time with students and teachers alike, and she was feeling very alone at a very pivotal point in a young person's life, and that is when she came across the Young Police Explorers program. Sandra actually idolized cops from a very young age, thanks to a strong relationship with an army veteran named of Gerald. Gerald was essentially a surrogate grandfather to Sandra, and was more than happy to nurture her desire to join the police force. Gerald had been able to keep Sandra on the straight and narrow, so when he passed away in May of 2012, Sandra was even more lost. Hence why, when she came across the, police explorers program,
everyone's just dying around her.
She was absolutely determined to get in.
What happened to her dad? Like, did he die too?
So then enter Matthew Farwell, a confident, dominating, tall, strong figure. Ex-military, Matthew joined the Stoughton police force in 2012 when he was 26 years old. Stoughton, by the way, it's where Sandra grew up. It's like the next town over from Canton.
Okay.
The same year he joined the police, looking to improve his future prospects with the force, he signed up as an instructor with the Explorers Club. That was how he first met Sandra Birchmore, who was 14 when they first met. Sandra and Matthew would meet up regularly at the Stoughton Public Library, where he would help her with homework and they would friend each other on Facebook. And so to, the outside world, which I guess it is...
I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't give a fuck you a cop or not. You ain't friending my kid on Facebook. No. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a good gosh darn, bruh. I don't. I'm not happening. I'm calling the police. Oh, you are the police? Then, okay. Yeah, it's going to get tricky. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you, no, I don't give a fuck you a cop. I don't give a fuck you an EMT. I don't give a fuck who you is. There's a point to where it's just creepy. And then you meeting this child at the library, that's one thing. You know what I mean? That's a public area. A lot of people there. No, this is a library. What the fuck am I talking about? You don't need to be meeting an underage child anywhere for anything, for any reason whatsoever, without a parental supervision. I don't give a fuck. And you sure the fuck ain't Facebooking my fucking kid, you fucking creep. It ain't fucking happening. I don't give a fuck you cop or not. That's disgusting.
Point is, you and I, it looked sort of like, Sandra had finally found that mentor figure she was so desperate to find in her young life, finally someone who would look out for her and yada yada. And so it seemed like life had kind of sorta figured itself out.
Probably nothing but a fucking predator.
Fast forward 9 years. On February 4th, 2021, police in Canton, Massachusetts, they were alerted
9 years
after Sandra failed to show up to work for a few days. At this point, Sandra, 23 years old, she was working in a school, and it was her colleagues who noticed she hadn't been seen for a while. She had last been seen February 1st, so 3 days earlier, when school had been forced to shut down early due to something like seriously bad snowstorms they were having at the time. So officers arrived to her Canton apartment to do a welfare check on her, knocked on the door. Nothing coming from inside, so then they asked the property manager for a key, let themselves in, have a go around. Now the door was locked, there was no signs of a break-in in her apartment. Announcing themselves as they moved through, still no answer. But the reason there would be no answer would become apparent almost immediately. Sandra's body was found leaning against the closet door in her bedroom. She was cold to the touch and appeared to have been dead for some time. The strap from a duffel bag had been tied to the closet doorknob with the other end wound around Sandra's neck, strangling her. Now, initially, the scene looked like perhaps self-inflicted. An unusual one, but one nonetheless. And it was treated that way by both Canton PD and Mass State Police. This was soon backed up by the state's medical examiner.
Not the case, is it?
And it very nearly ended there. I mean, officially it did, because to those who personally knew Sandra, it did. Right from the beginning, Sandra's friends and her family they had their issues. They were like, that does not ring true for old Sandy at all. She was doing great in work and life, was just good, doing great in general. And the little cherry on top was that Sandra had just found out she was pregnant with her very first child, something Sandra ecstatic about. She couldn't wait. She was planning to tell everybody, like, really, really soon on Valentine's Day. She was going to do a big announcement for everybody to know. And Sandra's behavior on her last day, when people had spoken to her earlier, no way indicative of, what the police would say it was. She'd not only booked appointments, but Sandra had even been seen on CCTV in the foyer of her apartment building, coming and going with a rubber broom in her hand as she cleared the snow from her car. And that night, Sandra had a visitor, dressed like he's on the prowl for healthcare CEOs, but a visitor nonetheless. Who was he? Sandra's therapist later told investigators that Sandra had shown no indication at all that she was even in the slightest bit depressed. This story truly is about some very shady things that happened in plain sight, and a killer who is known to, like, everybody. But guess what? What if, for instance, you didn't want to be found? You didn't want people to know where you are. It's the holidays, which means we are all sort of trying to hide from people. Am I right? Well, you've got to use the greatest, the GOAT, that is NordVPN. Nord makes sure that I'm not tracked because it hides my IP address. Your IP address can tell people where you are. Physically, it's linked to where you are literally using the internet. But with Nord, no one can tell because you can pick anywhere in the world you want to connect to the internet from. Trying to track me? My VPN says I'm in Brazil, but in reality I ain't. Not yet. It looks beautiful though. But what if you wanted to access content that is only available in certain countries? Well, guess what? You can virtually be in any country. Ain't no one gonna stop you. Not if you use the best, the most reliable VPN, that is Nord. But it ain't just a VPN. Nord doesn't only keep your location safe and secure, Nord also has incredible features like Nord's Mesh Net, where you can safely connect to any other device in the world. Or how about a password manager, a data scanner, or a dark web monitor that gives you alerts if your credentials have been leaked? Or what about Nord's Threat Protection, that blocks nefarious websites and ads, scans files, stops trackers in their tracks, I guess. Nord's goal is and has always been to make the internet better than it is today, which we can all agree could be a lot better than it is today, free from online threats, censorship, surveillance. Because the internet these days, I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but it's unlikely to give us more freedom. And that's why it helps to support folk like Nord, who have got your back. So become safer with a click by downloading NordVPN today. And if you use my special little link, that is nordvpn.com/thatchapter, you can get an exclusive deal just in time for the holidays. Get a mega discount on NordVPN's 2-year plan, and you also get 4 extra months right here at nordvpn.com/thatchapter. And it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Nord's your all-in-one, keep you safe and private on the internet type thing with an amazing deal just in time for the holidays, folks. So you know what? If you're looking for something under the tree, how about, I mean, you'll probably have to put your laptop there because it's an online thing, but you know what I mean. So get that big old discounted 2-year plan, and guess what? You also get 4 of those months for free. Jesus, that's... Thank you so much to NordVPN for supporting that chapter. Now let's get back to our story. And someone else who thought Sandra's death was worth a closer look was in fact someone from Sandra's hometown of Stoughton.
Today I have the pleasure of bringing you Stoughton Police Chief, Donna McNamara.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Stoughton's first female police chief, Donna McNamara.
Okay.
Looking over various statements from people close to Sandra, Chief McNamara had become alarmed by the sheer amount of them that seemed to refer to a long-standing relationship between Sandra and tree of her own police officers, 3 Stoughton cops. One name that kept coming up in particular again and again was Matthew Farwell, who was now a detective.
And he's a tall man.
The 2 other men were Farwell's fellow
Kinda
officers,
chesty built.
Robert Devine,
Hi, I'm Stoughton Deputy Police Chief Robert Devine.
who was the man who'd run the Explorers program when Sandra had been there, and William Billy Farwell, Matthew's twin brother, a cop in the very same police department. Chief McNamara was concerned enough with what she was hearing that she actually initiated an internal affairs investigation, if you can believe that.
Right.
And the internal affairs,
That's not creepy at all.
unit team, they spent a fair amount of time clackety digging through Sandra's cell phone, which had been found, right beside her body. And messages they found on her phone between herself, Sandra, and Matthew Farwell, they... Buckle up, folks. They really revealed the disturbing and twisted nature of Matthew and Sandra's relationship. Now, none of the messages indicated a direct, threat of violence or something like that. But what they did do was expose Matthew Farwell as a predator, like the very worst kind of predator. And he would be, as my old granny would say, a real sack of shit. A conversation between the 2, the investigators found, was them reminiscing about the first time they did the dirty. And calculating the dates, Matthew would have been 27 and Sandra 15. So that was already enough for Matthew to be placed on paid leave while the internal affairs investigation looked further. The messages well and clearly indicated that Matthew had
Basically says she remembered the day, it was April whatever, and it's like the best day of her life, and dude's like, me too. I don't like this. It's getting fucked.
spent a hell of a lot of time, a hell of a lot of his own time, get a hobby or something, into grooming Sandra when she was a child and, telling her, oh, he loved her and all this kind of stuff, which he absolutely did not. Sandra, it appeared, though, fully believed he did. Her messages to him would be about emotions and feelings. He would text back, just bringing it right back to, doing it. Damn, this story is creepy. It'd sicken your arse. I mean, you can find a lot of the messages online. I won't verbally at least go through them because they are disturbing, graphic, and you might end up with your head in the toilet if you read too many of them. Now, Matthew would,
I do not want to drown myself in the
toilet.
toilet.
We slept together.
Like that's not high on my list of things I want to do today. What happened to Bill? Oh, he drowned himself in the fucking toilet. Why? Cause of Mike. That's not how this day's going, Mike. Let's turn this shit around, homie. I don't want to drown myself in the toilet, man. It's grody.
Once when she was of age and we were drunk and it was just one time, when in reality, going through this messages, it had started when she was a child, going on, from her time at the Young Explorers Club to her death. For 8 years, they had been having an affair. It had begun in 2013.
So fucking gross.
The same year Matthew Farwell was getting married. So while he was marrying his wife, he was cheating on her. The entire thing is gross. He would meet up with her after school in his police cruiser, and if she got bad grades or she didn't share her cell phone location, he would just make her do incredibly degrading acts. And if she even mentioned any other men, mother of God. Despite everything with Matthew, in 2015, Sandra was able to get her high school diploma. Unfortunately, with school over and the Explorers Club no longer an option, Sandra was suddenly again lacking the direction she needed. Matthew, meanwhile, was thriving. In May 2016, he and his wife, along with their 2 children, moved into a nice old 4-bedroom house. In stark contrast, Sandra lost her mother, who died suddenly of a massive stroke at just 52 years old. Less than a month later, she lost her grandmother. Sandra was again all alone and very vulnerable, and it seemed to be only getting more so.
That poor child never had a chance in fucking hell.
In 2020, things were at an all-time low for Sandra. At one point, her aunt, who had kind of begun looking out for her, her aunt became so worried about Sandra that she called the cops, fearful she might, do something. So the cops arrived and they brought her to hospital. Throughout this entire ordeal, Sandra had been texting Matthew, letting him know what was going on. And then the doctors clear her. We don't think she's a threat to herself or to others. Sandra then goes out, texts Matthew, Okay, I've been cleared by the doctors, sorry for worrying you during this entire ordeal. Matthew replied back, no need to apologize. I wasn't worried. What a guy. Sandra was struggling to keep her life on track. All the while, Sandra's relationship with Matthew Farwell was getting more and more
This is
abusive.
a piece of fucking
And
trash,
Matthew Farwell
man.
wasn't the only man in a position of power.
See, like, I know we are supposed to trust cops, believe in them. They're supposed to be there to serve and protect and all this other bullshit. But there are so many stories like this out there. It's really hard to put your trust into them. And I'm not saying that or mean that in any disrespect to any officers of the law out there that do their job, do it the way they're supposed to. You have shit employees everywhere you work, anywhere you shop, anywhere you fucking go. You have shit employees. Like, that's just how that's fucking life. It just so happens, like, when it comes to like these shit employees, they're the ones that are supposed to be like serving, protecting. Your house gets broke into, making you feel comfortable. You get into a wreck and it's bad, like bad. They're beat. I can't stand shit like this, man. I really can't. It makes me so angry. Like, I grind my teeth. I need to go to the dentist and get something for that. Like, I grind my teeth. I do. I get angry and it's like, I don't know why. But my biggest thing on this whole fucking story is these cops did to this girl what a criminal that they should be going after would do to a girl. How can you sit there and try to act like you're better than half the criminals you're arresting when you're doing the same motherfucking thing? I hope when this is all said, done, and over with, he's in prison getting it in his booty hole. And then smacked in the mouth, told him, and just literally, I want someone to come up, just straight up in there, straight up in there, straight up in there. And while he's sitting there crying, be like, did you at least like it? They spit in his face and be like, no, do better.
Who was taking full advantage of Sandra's vulnerable nature. The other two officers I mentioned previously, Matthew's twin Billy Farwell and Robert Devine, had also taken advantage of her. It was now full-on trafficking at this point.
Yeah.
Wow.
All three men, the Farwell brothers and Devine, violated their oaths of office and should never have the privilege of serving any community as a police officer. Through a sustained and deliberate combination of lies,
I like this
deceit,
lady.
and treachery.
Good cop. They are out there, people. Good cop. Don't know she's always a good cop or always has been a good cop, but right now, at this point in time, this motherfucker right here, good.
They violated the policies and the core values of the Stoughton Police Department. Not to mention human decency.
Hell yeah.
I mean, the entire life of Sandra Birchmore is so incredibly tragic. The initial verdict on what happened to her, it as tragic it is, as sad as it is to say, it would almost wouldn't be surprising. But then the FBI got involved. Usually homicide cases aren't within the remit of the feds at all, not unless there are some very particular circumstances. In Sandra's case, it was the combination of the original verdict being changed to a potential homicide, with Matthew as the prime suspect, and the revelation of Sandra being the victim of grooming, despite the mountain of evidence from the phones in the possession of authorities, None of it, however, featured a real threat to kill Sandra. The FBI needed a breakthrough. It would take a couple of years for that breakthrough to break through, but when it did, oh boy.
I
On the
mean,
morning
Mike,
after
it's hard to be
Sandra
funny
died,
in videos like
Matthew and
this,
his
ain't
wife,
about.
Sure, didn't they just welcome new baby into the world? Good for them. As every new parent does these days, Matthew proudly posted a photo of himself holding the infant on his Facebook page. To those investigating Sandra's death, there was something eerily familiar about this photo. Specifically, what Matthew was wearing. In the picture, the smiling 6'4" Matthew was wearing an all-black hoodie, blue jeans, and brown shoes. Pretty regular, right? Well, normally it would be fairly regular, except in this case it just so happens to have been exactly the same clothes as the large man seen entering Sandra Birchmore's apartment was wearing on February 1st.
Don't you love it when cops are dumber
And
than fuck?
one of the cleaners from her apartment building say, "That guy in the CCTV, he looks really like the guy who helped Sandra move into this building." Yeah, Matthew. Sandra was seen at 5:15 p.m. collecting a food delivery, and then later as she returned from clearing the snow from her car at 5:46 p.m. After that, her phone activity showed her texting friends and shopping for baby provisions. The mystery man, wearing the same outfit as Matthew, was seen entering the building at 9:27 p.m. Analysis of Matthew's phone showed he had texted Sandra at 9:08 p.m. asking if he could stop by, to which she replied 2 minutes later that the back door was open. Sandra's phone recorded her last steps as being at 9:40 p.m., after which it never moved. Minutes later, the mystery man left the building. And about an hour later, after that mystery man was seen leaving Sandra Birchmore's apartment building, didn't Matthew Farwell just show up at the hospital where his wife was about to give birth? Exactly when Matthew Farwell, allegedly, decided to murder Sandra Birchmore, we can't exactly say, but it definitely had been planned. In January, a couple of weeks before Sandra Birchmore was killed, Matthew had called over requesting a key to her apartment so he could come over whenever he wants, and Sandra said, "Here you go." She handed the key over to him while they were in her apartment, and Sandra would say, and it was noticeable because she said this to friends and family, she said that when Matthew was there, getting the key off her, he was like snooping around her apartment building, looking in the bathroom, checking the closets. She thought this was weird. She kind of waved off that red flag, though. The motive? Unfortunately, it's quite simply the obvious one. Sandra Birchmore was pregnant. She was expecting a baby. A baby that was Matthew's baby. She had told him she was pregnant in December just before, and she was excited about the future. A future that she wanted him to very much be a part of. And despite his assurances to Sandra, can't wait, he very much could wait and did not want to be a part of that future. His wife was expecting a baby. So, his own family was growing. And so, well, he really, tragically, she was a loose end to him at this point. Sandra had also found out that Matthew and his wife were expecting their third baby, something that devastated her and also caused Sandra to push Matthew to leave his wife for her. Sandra had even drafted a big old long message, to Matthew Farwell's wife saying, "Here, listen, we've been having an affair since I was a child." Trying, bed to send it to expose what had been going on. Drafted it, but in the end, she decided not to send that letter. And instead she just went back, "Leave your wife, be with me." And, well, Matthew could see only one way out.
This story has played out in several Massachusetts communities. Let's show
This is
you a
just
map right
disgusting,
now.
man.
Is in Stoughton is where Matthew Farwell met Sandra Birchmore and allegedly groomed her as a sexual predator. In Canton is where Birchmore was found dead and what the FBI has said was a murder and not a suicide. And in Revere is where Farwell was arrested this morning by a SWAT team.
In August 2024, an arrest warrant was issued for Matthew. 38-year-old Matthew Farwell was charged with murdering Sandra. In addition to these CCTV and phone logs, the FBI also consulted with another forensics investigator who contradicted the original police account that Sandra's death was self-inflicted. He could tell from the way her neck bone had snapped, somebody had strangled her. Since his arrest at the end of August 2024, Matthew remains in federal custody. His twin predator brother was released from duty. He wasn't actually decertified as an officer because of his involvement with Sandra, but rather because he was found to have conducted unlawful searches on his and his brother's names in the police database. Officer Devine resigned in August 2022. Matthew has yet to be given a trial date, but it wouldn't surprise me, given the mountain of evidence against him, if he were to come to a deal to plead guilty to escape the big-ass book that will hopefully be thrown at him.
A piece of shit. I hope he gets fucking life.
And there you have it. You know, a real tragic story of a very young, vulnerable child woman who'd been taken advantage, of in the very worst way by people she looked up to her entire life. And they just turned out to be friggin' monsters. Sandra was a person who needed somebody, anybody, to care for her, to care about her when those closest to her passed away. The people she thought would ended up being the worst kind of monsters who used her up and then, when it became inconvenient, murdered her. She was betrayed by the people she thought cared, but in reality did not think about her at all. I hope a lot of people are now, because anyone who does what they did to Sandra should get the book thrown at them. Sandra did not get what she deserved, but I hope these sexy shits do.
She just wants family and someone to love her.
So, you know what, next time you're driving through Canton or Stoughton or, well, maybe anywhere just south of Boston, just really avoid trying to be pulled over. Do your best. Drive safe.
I agree with him 100%. My God, those people are trash-ass pieces of shit. No, that poor child did not deserve a damn thing any of those grown-ass men fucking did to her. And he didn't just take one life. I don't give a fuck. She was pregnant. He took 2 fucking lives. Bro, if you didn't want to have a baby with no one but your old lady, then you should have kept your dick in your fucking pants, bruh. I hope right now someone's in there just straight up plowing that ass. Making you cry like a little bitch. You fucking trash ass motherfucker. And that's what gives so many cops bad names. Not all of them are like that, but there's so many of them that are that it's hard to trust any single one. Really enjoyed today's video though. I mean, that's as much as you can in a situation like this. Like, I don't enjoy every video, but I do enjoy the fact that stories like this need to get out there, and a lot of times people don't like to watch them by themselves. At least I'm there, you know? I'll watch it with you. I don't give a shit. Alright, really enjoyed today's video. Hopefully y'all enjoyed today's video as much as I did. If you did, please go down there, leave a thumbs up. It really does help the channel grow. While you're down there, if you want, going over, slap that subscribe button, become part of the B5 Nation. We do some crazy stuff here. If you want to know when that crazy stuff happens, ding that bell and turn on all notifications. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. So angry. Like, they should have been protecting and helping this poor child, and the only thing they did is help ruin her more. It's fucking ridiculous.
Your